Let's talk about minimum wage. Minimum wage is supposed to be a living wage. That means a decent life for a family of 4. That's a pipe dream. So let's talk about minimum wage for a single individual. That's also a pipe dream. So let's talk about something we might be able to achieve. Survival wage for one individual. Okay, survival wage. That means you're above the poverty line. You have no life. There's nothing decent about it. But you can pay your bills as long as nothing goes wrong. If anything goes wrong, you're fucked. This isn't enough. Have an accident? This isn't enough. Have a medical condition? This isn't enough. Have a fire? This isn't enough. Okay, this is survival wage, assuming the universe is very generous to you and nothing goes wrong. You never have a major accident. You never have a major repair debt. And you never have any medical conditions. So basically, everything goes hunky-dory for your whole life. If that happens, this is enough to be a survival wage. What do I define as a survival wage? You can afford the basics of life that is typical in the United States. Not what you consider a survival wage. What is typical in the United States. So this will vary slightly from place to place, but in probably 98% of the country, with the exception of weird places, like Houston or New York or San Francisco or something like that. Those are obviously going to be exceptions. But we're talking here in Edgewood, New Mexico. They're in Levittown, Pennsylvania. They're in, bumfuck Nebraska or Montana or Florida, wherever. Just a general, most of the country. Okay? Now, we're going to use averages and medians. Your $600 apartment doesn't mean shit unless you can find 80 million more of those $600 apartments for the other 80 million people who fall into this category. So you have to use numbers that can apply to everybody. You can't use special scenarios. You can't use niche conditions. You can't use cherry-picked conditions that aren't available to anybody else. You also are not allowed to use cheat codes. That means no sharing costs. That means no welfare. That means no state benefits. Nothing. You must pay for your life. That's the objective, right? If a person works full-time, they should be able to pay for the very basics of their cost of living without having to resort to state welfare, which is really just corporate welfare. Corporate socialism. The corporations pay you less, so the state foots the rest of the bill. It's bullshit. So what would it take for one single individual, an average individual, almost anywhere in the country, to survive? $18.60 an hour. That's a survival wage. Meaning minimum wage across the country should start at $18.60 an hour, and that needs to change yearly. Here's how I'm going to prove it. And you can look up any of these numbers. You are not going to find any of these numbers unless you're looking these numbers up at the same time as I post this video, because these numbers change sometimes daily. Just last month, the average for an apartment was $1,068. Now it's $1,098. These numbers will fluctuate. Okay. These numbers also assume no luxuries, no entertainment, no benefits, no bonuses, nothing. Okay? And these also assume that you're very efficient and you're very miserly. So, I'm going to give you I'm going to give you 2 cheat codes to start you off with, and you only get these 2 cheat codes. We're assuming you already have an apartment, so you don't have to come up with first month's, last month's, and security deposit. And we're assuming you already have a car, so you don't have to factor in buying a car into this. Although how you're going to replace that car in 10 years, I have no idea, because you don't make enough at this wage. Okay? So, you have rent. Average rent is $1,098. Yes, some places it's less. Yes, some places it's more. We're talking about averages for the bulk. Rent, $1,098. Healthcare. This number I call bullshit on. I've never seen healthcare this cheap ever. So I'm not sure where this comes from, but when I type average healthcare into Google, this is what comes up. $456. Short of welfare-based healthcare, like Obamacare or something like that, or healthcare through your employer, I've never seen healthcare this cheap. So I'm not sure how they come up with $456. I think they're accounting for welfare healthcare. Until I find a better number, I'm going to use it though. $456 for these are all monthly, by the way. Food, $300. The average person consumes between $250 and $350 a month in food. We're going to split it right down the middle, call it $300. You are not going to eat well on $300 a month. Theoretically, if you're careful and you don't live in a super expensive area, you should be able to eat relatively nutritionally complete on $300 a month. It's going to be hard. You're going to have to actually sit down and plan out your meals pretty carefully to make sure you have a somewhat nutritionally balanced diet. $400 would be better. It'd be a lot easier for you to eat nutritionally balanced meals if you had $400, but we're going to use $300. Remember, this is a survival wage. No luxuries here. You ain't buying steak. Phone, $25. Phone is critical. You have to have communications. You can't even operate in our society without communications for the most part. Remember, general bulk, not the one guy living out in the woods somewhere, who's sitting on a nest egg and owns his property. Okay, we're not talking about him. We're talking about everybody. This phone is also your sole source of internet and your sole source of entertainment, because we'll get that in a minute. Utilities, average $200. Most of us pay more than that. Most of us pay a lot more than that. But again, we're going survival here. Okay, you're going to turn off the power when you don't need it because you're trying to survive. Car insurance, $150. Yeah, good luck with that. If you're over 25 with excellent credit, yes, that's no problem. You'll probably go even down to as low as 100. I mean, I'm paying $100 a month for 4 cars, but I'm also 45 with an 830 credit score, no tickets and no history. No accidents, no claims. You're under 25, you ain't getting car insurance for $150. But we'll go with it, $150. Let's see here. What is this? Maintenance, $42 a month. You have to maintain that car. Maintenance on a relatively decent car, assuming you got a decent car, and assuming you're not driving for a living, because this goes way up if you're driving for a living. Like if you're doing Uber or something like that, this goes way higher. But we're assuming normal 9-to-5 job. Maintenance, $42, because it's $500 a year. You say, well, I didn't spend $500 on my car last year. Yeah, but when you spend, $4,500 on your transmission in 5 years, you have to amortize that over the entire life of the car. And that average comes out of this value. So you need to be putting aside $42 a month into your savings account so that if something happens to your car, you have the money to fix it. You end up needing new tires, you pull from this to fix it. Okay, you end up needing, a new alternator, you pull from this to fix it. This also assumes you do all your own basic maintenance on the car. If an alternator fails, you're replacing it. If your brakes need replacing, you're replacing it. If your tires need replacing, you're buying used tires at the shop that charges $30 for a used car or mountain mounts. Okay? If you're buying new tires, if you're paying a shop to do any of the work on your car, you just blew this budget right out of the water. Okay? You need triple that at least. Fuel, $146 a month. Where do I come up with that? Again, averages. The average mileage in the U.S. is 14,263 miles. The average fuel economy is 24.5 miles per gallon, using an average price of gas of $3 per gallon. A lot of you are paying more than that. Doesn't matter. We're using averages. $146 a month in fuel. Basics, $50. Basics include everything from the toilet paper and toothpaste in your bathroom to the shirt on your back. All right, so you're not doing much with $50. So you're buying the cheap toilet paper, you're buying the dollar store toothpaste and toothbrush, and you're shopping thrift stores. You're not buying Gucci, you're not buying Forever 21, you're not buying Hot Topic, you're not even buying JCPenney. You're shopping at Walmart and you're shopping at Goodwill. Entertainment, $0. You don't have it in the budget. Luxuries, $0. You don't have it in the budget. Eating out, $0. You can't even go to McDonald's. DMV, $13. This is averaged over time because, for example, your license is usually around $50 for 4 years, so you got to divide that by 4. The average person pays about $50 a year for registration and about $90 a year for inspection. So again, we're averaging that out and dividing it. Some places will, like for example, I don't have inspection, and my license is good for 8 years, but in Pennsylvania it's only good for 4, and there is an inspection. All right, and in some states this is even worse because in some states they charge you property tax on your car. One of the reasons I chose New Mexico over Arizona was because Arizona charges property tax on cars. So my house property tax would be slightly less, but then I'd be paying $900 a year for property tax on my 4 cars. So I chose New Mexico. TV, $0. You don't have cable. Home internet, nope, you can't afford it. your internet is your $25 a month phone. You're not getting a Sprint phone. You're not getting a T-Mobile phone. You're not getting a Verizon phone. You're going to go get yourself. We're assuming you already have the phone. That's another cheat code I'm giving you. All right, because even a cheap phone like this is $200. Okay, and you're going to go get Hello Mobile or Boost Mobile or something like that. $25 a month, unlimited everything. Survival here. Okay. Oh, you want to watch movies? It's through the phone. You want to get on the internet? It's through the phone. Get yourself a cable if you can afford it and connect it to your TV if you have one. And you transmit your screen from your phone to your TV. Okay, because you can't afford cable, you can't afford home internet. Maybe you can share somebody's Wi-Fi. Streaming services, $0. Okay, this is survival wage. Let's add that up. $1,098, $456, $300, $25, $200, $150, $42, $146, $50, and $13. That comes to, whatever that comes to, times 12, $29,760. We're not done yet. That's after tax. We need the pre-tax amount. You will be paying about 20% in taxes on a $30,000, what ends up being a $37,000 income. So pre-tax, you just take that $29,760 divided by 8, multiply it by 10, and that is what your pre-tax amount will be, $37,200. If you assume a full-time schedule, 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year, 2,000 work hours, that is $18.60 an hour. No one in this country, without being an exception that most other people can't copy, no average general person in this country can survive on less than $18.60 an hour. And that assumes you never have an extraordinary breakage to your car. That assumes you never have a major invoked debt by a repair or an accident. That assumes you don't really use your health insurance, because this is not covering your out-of-pocket, your prescriptions, your co-pays, your deductibles, not including any of that. Okay, that's all on top of this. Okay, this is all assuming nothing goes wrong. Now, you could lower this a little bit by using a major cheat code. You could forego healthcare. Yeah, good luck. What happens if you forego healthcare? So 456 times 12, that is 54. I hate when I do that. I click on the window behind the window and it covers everything up. So 29,760 minus 5472 is 24,280 divided by 8 times 10. So you would still need to make an income of $30,360, which is just a smidge over 15. That's 15.18. That's if you use the biggest cheat code in the country and you don't get health care. But again, you're violating the rules. You're not getting health care. That's a cheat code. Because you get sick, they take everything from you. So, I mean, please, by all means, I would love to see you attempt to argue these numbers with me. You can go into Google, type average rent. It's going to give you $1,098. Go into Google, type average healthcare. It's going to give you 456. Those numbers might vary slightly depending on when you're watching this video and doing this. So obviously you'll have to redo all these numbers. You do this 6 months from now, you got to redo all these numbers. But they're all going to be similar. In fact, they'll be larger. The phone, hellomobile.com. It's $25 a month. Food. Again, check out the U.S. agricultural thing or whatever it is, the government agency that figures all this out. That's how they figure out food stamps and all that crap. It's $250 to $350 a month. Fuel. Look up average miles driven, and then look up average fuel economy. All right, divide the fuel economy into the miles driven. That's going to give you the number of gallons you need. Multiply that by the average price of gas at the time that you do the math, or whatever the price of gas in your area is. Like, for example, I can get gas for $2.78. So my cost for gas would be slightly lower. Okay, that's why I drive an electric car. Fuck gas stations. On the DMV fees, you'll have to calculate on a state-by-state basis. I'm using an average. But like here, it's $13. Your average is not going to be that much different than mine. So here in New Mexico, I got to pay like $47 a year for registration, and I got to pay like $49 every 8 years for so it's like $5 a year and $47, so $55. Divide that, so I'm going to pay $5 or $6 a month for DMV here in New Mexico. In Pennsylvania, you're going to pay 13 or more. In Arizona, you're going to pay quite a bit more than that. Okay, go ahead. You sit down and figure all this out. But remember, you're not allowed to use cheat codes. Sharing a room with somebody is a cheat code. The savings you garner by sharing an apartment with somebody are supposed to benefit you. That's a cheat code for you to save money, not to permit your employer to pay you less. So, how much does labor cost? You see, everything has two prices. You have cost and you have retail price. So, it might cost me $1 to make this screw, and I sell the screw for $2. You say, well, it should be defined by market forces. You're an idiot. I'm sorry. I'm tired of being nice on this subject. If you think market forces are supposed to determine what minimum wage is, you're a fucking moron. And you obviously don't run a business, or you're complicit and you run a business. And you like having slaves. Okay? Market forces and supply and demand determine the price of the screw. They do not determine the cost of the screw. The cost of the screw is $1. The price of the screw is $2. Now, if people start figuring out that they can make more money by selling the screws for a little bit cheaper, market forces might say, for example, push the price of a screw down to $1.75. Or if there's not enough screws, market forces might force the price of a screw up to $2.25. But market forces and supply and demand cannot push the price of a screw below its cost. You always have to pay cost plus profit. Supply and demand and market forces, they have an effect on the profit margin of the screw, but not on the cost of the screw. In order for you to adjust the cost of the screw, you have two choices only. Do without the screw, or make the screws yourself if you can do it for cheaper. Some places do that. I mean, these companies, make their own cans because it's cheaper than buying cans from somebody else. But whatever it costs them to make the can is ultimately the lowest price it can go. You can't go below cost. What is the cost of labor? Not the price of labor. What is the cost of labor? Because labor is a product, like the screw. And it's my product, not yours. It's my labor, it's my product. You want to buy my product from me, screw or labor. If you want to buy my product from me, this is the cost. Anything above this is up for negotiation. So when there's a glut of workers and not enough jobs, well, everybody's paying pretty close to cost because there's too many workers, too many screws. Supply and demand. Cost goes down, or price goes down. Cost does not. You can't go below cost. If you can't afford cost, then you can't afford the screw. Then you can't afford the labor. Okay? What is the cost of labor? The cost of labor is life. That's the cost of labor. It's life. What is the cost of life? Right there. That is the cost of life. $18.60 an hour. That's the cost of life. And that assumes nothing goes wrong. Here, pause that again if you want to copy that. That is the cost of life. Right there. The lower number, the 30,000 and the 1518, that's if you use the biggest cheat code we have and you don't get health care. Well, my employer gives it to me. You don't have a minimum wage job then. Minimum wage jobs don't give health care. Okay? This is the cost of labor. You cannot go below this and call it a free market. If you are below 1860, you're a slave. It's that simple. If you allow market forces, if you allow the market to control the cost, not the price, the cost of labor, you drive the cost to zero. That's exactly where slavery comes from. Because if you wish to compel somebody to do something for you, there are only two ways to do it. Pay them or force them. There is no other way to do it. Pay them or force them. If you pay them less than cost, you're forcing them. That's slavery. 1860 is where minimum wage needs to be right now. 1860. That is what minimum wage should be right now. Not next year, not 2 years from now, not 5 years from now. It needs to be 1860 today. Because next week it's higher. Next year it's higher. Unless we do something as a nation to reduce the cost. See, that's possible too. We're assuming that all the screw manufacturers are selling these screws for $1 because the industry is already mature and optimized. And if anybody could figure out a way to make it cheaper, they already have. Well, the problem is we're doing the opposite. We're doing things that artificially inflate the cost of making the screw. Artificially inflate the cost of life. We do that for profit. If we had universal health care, meaning nobody paid anything for health care, not a dime. You don't pay for, short of over-the-counter things like Advil and Tylenol and Band-Aids, you pay nothing for health care. It all comes out of taxation. The cost of health care would actually drop. Your taxes would actually go down, not up. Listen to that again. If we had universal, across the board, no compromise health care, your costs would vanish because you would no longer be paying that $456 a month, and the 20% you're paying in the taxes would get smaller. Because we pay more per capita for health care than any other country on the planet except Finland. Every single other country except that one pays less for health care than we do. A lot less. Not a little bit less. Like 1/2 to 1/10 the amount we pay for health care. Ooh, they don't have good health care. Better than your zero health care. Continue on with your zero health care. So, enabling universal health care would instantly drop survival wage from 1860 to 15. Just having universal health care, doing nothing else, just having universal health care would drop the cost of life from $37,000 a year to $30,000 a year. Now, you could say $15 an hour is a survival wage. It's not a living wage. It's a survival wage. It should be a living wage. But let's start small here. Let's aim for survival wage, okay? So now that person making $18 an hour, that might actually be close to a living wage. I don't know. We'd have to figure out what a living wage is. I haven't done the math on that. Probably not even close. But it would be better. It might be a living wage for one person. Have affordable housing. Most of our housing problems are artificial. You know how you fix affordable housing? You get rid of property taxes. Gone. You eliminate property taxes. Instead, increase sales tax 1%. That's probably more than we collect in property taxes. If anybody knows where I can look up the numbers, the total amount the country collects in property taxes from residences, not from businesses, just from residences, the total amount we collect in property taxes, and and the total revenue stores make selling stuff. Anything that has a sales tax attached to it. What is that? What's that total number? How many trillions of dollars is that? Well, what's 1% of that? And then compare that with what we collect in residential property taxes. I bet you a 1% sales tax increase would pay for it all. But then we couldn't take people's homes. Okay? So why does that make homes not affordable? Well, when your profit is predicated on how much you charge somebody for property tax, what is your best interest? Your best interest is increasing the value of the properties, because if the properties are worth more, you can tax them more. 10% of $100,000 is a lot smaller than 10% of $300,000. It's triple. So getting rid of that, and as a result of that, we encourage more expensive homes. And we partially do that with zoning. We create more and more onerous zoning restrictions to make houses nicer and nicer, which makes them more expensive, which makes them worth more money, which allows you to collect more taxes. Then you now have houses that are so expensive that you require a loan. That loan is going to double the price of the house, which means if you're going to be paying double with interest, you might as well make the homes nicer, so it's worth doubling the price with all the interest you're going to be paying the bank. The average person pays between 70 and 85% interest on their home. Oh, I pay 3.92%. That's a compound rate. That's not your interest rate. Your interest rate, you make your last payment, subtract your principal. That's your interest. Average person is paying between 60 and 85% interest on their home. And only the really, 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 really wealthy people with good credit are paying 60%. My neighbor was paying 117% interest. Wow, my dad was paying 85% interest. Yeah, it's insane. So you get rid of that, and you get rid of the onerous zoning. Not the good zoning. Some zoning makes sense, but I'm talking about the onerous crap. Like making it illegal to be off-grid. Making it illegal to have a house that's only 400 square feet. You know, bullshit like that. There's a lot more of that around than you think. Get rid of a lot of that crap, and all of a sudden, you know, it becomes possible to make and sell homes a hell of a lot cheaper. And there you go. Now you just got rid of the rent. People shouldn't be renting. You're paying $13,000 a year in rent. Just getting rid of rent takes 50% of the burden off minimum wage. Because if you own your home and you have no property taxes, well, all you have now is the maintenance of your home. A couple $100 a year. You know, call it $500 a year. That'll allow you to cover, like, if your microwave dies or your water heater dies. You know, the water heater lasts 10 or 15 years easy. So if one dies, you've been putting away that $500 a year, you know, that $42 a month for your home. And you can pull out of that to pay for the water heater. Okay? Or to pay for the air conditioning repair when it needs it. Okay? I mean, the people should not be renting. Renting should be a rare and unusual thing. Renting should be something businesses do. Renting should be something that mobile nomadic people do. People who are moving from place to place to place for their job. And so they have to rent because, you know, they're not going to be there for longer than 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, and then they're going to be in another city. Those are the kind of people who should be renting. Your average Joe working at McDonald's, Walmart, or Amazon should not be renting. They should have a home that they own. We could easily make affordable, basic, simple, bare-bones homes with land for $10,000 to $15,000. So how about the government, who's the one who's supposed to be issuing our currency, not the banks? How about the government give you a $15,000 loan with 10% interest? So you're going to pay back $15,000, and you're going to pay back $1,500 in interest. You'll pay it off in 10 years. I mean, that is $15,000 plus interest, $1,500. That's $16,500 divided by 10, divided by 12. That's $137 a month. Well, compared to that fucking number right there, give me a double-sized house for 200. What was it? 137. Yeah, I'll pay $275 a month. I want a double size house, a $30,000 house. Is that right? Plus $3,000 in interest. Where is that decimal coming from? That's 33,000. Divide by 10. Divide by 12. Yeah, $275. So you could build $30,000 homes, and they'd pay back $275 a month for 10 years. Are you fucking kidding me? This is duh. This is how it should be done. Duh. This is so obvious. But it's not profitable. So fuck it, right? 3D print some concrete homes on parcels of land that aren't worth anything. Most people can work from home nowadays. Right? Spread things out more. If I wasn't paying $1,100 a month for fucking rent, and I was paying $275 for a house I owned, I wouldn't mind a 30-minute commute to work. Cover the outside of the city. And what's going to happen? Businesses are going to open up in those areas. Because, now a person making $15 an hour who's paying for a home will actually have money to spend. Because I just lowered your cost. Well, let's do the math on that. Well, let's say universal health care and affordable homes. What are your costs now? Let's add it up. $275 for your rent, your home. Okay. Remember, there's no property tax. And there's no health care costs. That's built into your taxes, which are now lower, by the way. Okay. Then you got your food. Then you got your phone. Then you have your utilities. Then you have your car insurance. Then you have your maintenance for your car. Let's add maintenance for the house. Same 42. Let's add 146 for fuel. 50 for the basics. 13 for DMV. That's $1,243 a month. Times 12. That's $14,916. Divide by 8. Times 10. $18,645. Divide by 2,000. What the fuck? $9.33 becomes a survival wage. $9.33. Dollar Tree pays $9. So just by instituting universal health care, unconditional, across the board, universal health care. If you're born here, you're covered to the day you die. If you become a citizen, you're covered to the day you die. You don't have to pay for anything. No copay, no deductibles, no prescription costs. The government pays for everything, and it's paid for with your taxes. And your taxes are now lower, because the cost savings of having one unified healthcare system are going to be dramatic. Why do you think a 2-liter bottle costs a whole lot less than a can of soda per ounce? Okay? This is Econ 101. So I could make $9.33 a survival wage, which would make $15 an hour probably a living wage for an individual. The wages we have now would be livable for most people just by doing 3 things: universal health care, elimination of property taxes, and then the associated actions that come with that elimination to get rid of the roadblocks for affordable housing. And then the government would build and loan you at a fixed 10% interest rate the money to buy a house, $30,000. We could easily do it for $15,000. I mean, your apartment is what, 600, 800 square feet? So 3 steel shipping containers. Okay? 3 steel shipping containers. I know in New Jersey I could buy those things. Forget about the fact that their prices are crazy right now. If this was being done through the government, they would be getting the best price. I, as a citizen, could buy 40-foot shipping containers, high cubes, nice ones, watertight, airtight, for $1,500 a piece. Now imagine instead we just built a concrete home. Go back to air forming. You take a bladder, you fill it with air, you spray concrete foam over the whole thing until eventually you have a solid concrete home. 2 or 3 of those little bubbles together would give you a nice sizable, 800 to 1,200 square feet home. Have all the utilities in one room with a single outlet in the rest of the rooms. Super simple here. We're not talking exotic. All right, this is survival. This is minimum wage. You don't get a fancy mansion. But now you have a livable home that you own, and you pay it off in 10 years on a minimum wage job. Just those 3 decisions. Just those 3 decisions. And we solve poverty. Gone. And businesses don't even have to pay more. The minimum wages we have in half the country right now would be sufficient. You could have a nationwide $12 minimum wage, and it would probably be sufficient. I make fucking rockets. This is not rocket science. It's simple Econ 101. It's simple goddamn math. This is not complicated. It's just pure greed. Do better.